and they shot his buddy right in the head. And his friend died in his arms right there. I mentioned in a previous video how I had left Indiana after a lot of stuff went down, and I found myself working at a grow in southern Colorado. Now, I was writing for High Times magazine, and the editor of High Times had gotten me this job in the greenhouse so I could help as a grower. It's just a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed working there, and the people were great. We had many breaks where we would imbibe and test our product and share what we had personally produced at home and that kind of thing. Well, as time went on, we got to know one another and we got to talk and we started sharing our stories. Well, many times there were things that needed to be done, but we had to wait. For example, we had to change the reverse osmosis tanks, but we had to wait while they filled up until it was time to change them. Or we needed to fill the generator with gas, but we had to wait till it was completely out. Or we needed to wait until it was time to shut down the lights and everything on the plants that were in their flowering state. So during these times where there really wasn't anything else to do, but we couldn't leave, we'd go across the parking lot, across the street, to a house where the owner owned the house, and many of the people who were working there were living. And they had this beautiful table out back underneath this nice shady tree, and we'd sit there and tell stories and share stories about our lives and play dominoes and things like that. Well, one of these evenings, several of the people who were working there and myself were sitting out back, enjoying the nice breeze, cooling off. And a friend of mine, who I'd worked with for a while, very nice guy, I'll call him Bob. Bob says, "So what made you leave Indiana?" And I said, I can't talk about that yet. It's really raw still, and a lot of bad stuff went down, and I just can't talk about that right now. And he said, "I know what you mean. I'm from El Salvador," he says, and I had to leave there too. Things got really scary. Now this guy, Bob, not his real name, had tattoos all over him, head to toe. And he kept his hair very short, and when he would cut his hair, and it was almost shaven, you could see that he had devil horns on his head. I mean, he had tattoos on his face, his neck, everywhere, you know. But he was a very nice guy. And he says, in El Salvador, we have this gang called MS-13. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. And some of his tattoos, were saying MS-13 and very indicative of it. And he says, "Do you see on my eyelids, it says no mas. I was in MS-13, but no more. I refuse to live like that anymore." And I said, "Wow, well, that must have been very hard for you." He goes, "Oh, you have no idea." So he tells me his story. When he was 9 years old, he and his best buddy were walking home from school. And they knew that there were two ways to go. You can go this way, which is longer, but it's a safe path. Or you can go this way, which is where you're not supposed to go. It's shorter, you'll get home faster, but it takes you through MS-13 territory. Well, it was a hot day and they were anxious to get home from school, so they took the shortcut. And all of a sudden, they hear bullet shots, and they're hearing bullets, pew, go right past them. So they got scared. They're 9 years old. So my friend, Bob, shouts out, "MS-13, leave us alone," basically. With a little more colorful language than I want to say here. But they stopped shooting for a minute. Then they shot again, and they shot his buddy right in the head. And his friend died in his arms right there. Of course, he didn't know what to do. He was totally freaked out. Well, these guys come up to him and they say, "You're MS-13? He goes, I was just saying that, because I was scared and I didn't want to get shot. And he goes, well, you are now. You claim to be, you are now. And the first thing we want you to do is we want you to go up to this lady standing across the street there, and we want you to get her attention. And he's like, okay. He's like, just go over there and ask her for some help. Engage her, talk to her a little bit. So he didn't know what to do. He felt like he didn't really have any options. So he did. And while he was doing that, they came up and killed her. So that really freaked him out. He went home, and MS-13 came to his house. Now, he was raised by his grandma, just like I was. So I had a lot of sympathy for him and a lot of understanding for what he was going through. They came to his house, and they said to her, we want you to make us some tortillas. And she said, I'm not going to make you any tortillas. And he goes, you don't make us tortillas, it'll be the last time you ever made tortillas again. And she still refused. They broke her wrists. So he felt like he had no choice but to join MS-13. Now, something else I want to tell you. I don't know if you remember the Reagan administration and the Iran-Contra affair and Oliver North and all of that, but my friend Bob remembers, as a young child, watching United States military vehicles, camouflaged, and soldiers going through the streets. People would come up to the vehicles when they stopped. They would give them packages, and then these people would go. Those people would later be caught selling drugs. So it seems to me pretty obvious where they got them, because those were the people that were always dealing with those things. I don't want to say the word too much. I don't want to trip the algorithm, but you catch my drift. Where did MS-13 come from? Where did it start? There's your answer, according to my friend Bob, who was there to witness it, because all those people that were going up to the Jeeps and getting packages, and the next week they'd come back and they'd bring a package to them and they'd get another package back. Those are the ones that turned in to the very first MS-13 gang members. So just a little bit of history for you there. So he felt like he didn't have any choice but to be involved. Now keep in mind, this guy is 9, 10 years old at this time. So years go by. He's involved with these people. He relayed to me that he did horrible things he wished he had never participated in and never even known about. He tells me that he sleeps with a gun under his pillow, but he has to make sure before he goes to bed every night that it's not loaded and that there's nothing in the chamber, because every night he wakes up pulling the trigger to his head. He's so miserable with these memories of the things that he's done. Oh. So that was a heavy conversation and hard to hear, and made what I had been through in Indiana look like child's play. I still couldn't talk about it, and I still can't talk about it much today. But my heart goes out to Bob and everything he went through.